Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 485. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. Guys, I did something this weekend that I have not done in over 15 months.
What?
What's that?
I showered. No.
Gross.
Yikes.
No, it's movie related. What is something we could have done 15 months ago, which we probably should have not done since?
You went to a movie theater.
I went to see a movie in the theater.
How'd you feel about that?
It was great.
Yeah?
Nice.
Yeah, I was really happy to be back in the theater. To be watching a movie on a screen that filled my field of vision was an experience I didn't know I missed as much as I did until I was there.
That's awesome.
Was there a lot of people
you
there?
saw F9.
I did see F9, yes.
I hear that's doing well
Is it?
in the box office.
I imagine so. I mean, those movies always did well during normal times. So I'm sure even for pandemic numbers, it's doing pretty okay.
Yeah, and it seems to be the big budget movie that timed everything right. You know what I mean? Like this is the moment to come back as theaters are reopening and people are feeling a little more comfortable with life and, you know, like a post-vaccine United States. It's not like they're trying to force a release in the middle of the pandemic like they were, 4 or 5 months ago.
Like
now
with
they're
Tenet
actually,
or something.
Yeah, now they're actually being realistic about the confidence of people to go back to the theaters. And it's a fun movie. I mean, it's not a movie that's going to challenge you on your first movie back for sure. It's going to be just a big action extravaganza, right? I mean, I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming
it's right. I mean, I'm sure we may get into this in a couple of weeks, but it's not a movie where you're really going to be like sitting there and thinking it through. You're really there just to watch. It's a popcorn flick.
Yeah, it's a movie made to give you a good time.
Exactly. Yep. And it's made to be seen on a huge screen with all the speakers and all the great sound.
Sure.
It made 70 million opening weekend domestic and 400 million worldwide.
400 worldwide.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
And
I mean, wasn't it released like earlier worldwide, or was it released this weekend worldwide?
Oh, I don't know.
I think that 400 million is like because it's been out for a week in other countries.
Okay,
so it's got some time to get some steam.
Yeah.
70's pretty good for post-pandemic movie theater, though.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Oh,
cool.
It's been out since May in China.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's had some time to rack some numbers up worldwide.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the last time I was in a movie theater was around Christmas time when my family rented a theater. So I've been back at a theater since then, but that was like a tiny box theater where we rented the entire theater. So it was just us in there. And it was a theater experience for sure. But I definitely have not had the experience of being in a big crowd that's excited to see a thing, with a big giant screen. I have not had that feeling in over a year now at this point.
Oh, yeah. This was the ultra screen. We had like the giant red leather recliners that you could lay almost flat if you wanted to. I would say the theater was half full, maybe a little bit more than half full, which is still crazy to think. Like if during non-pandemic times, if you went to go see Fast 9 on opening weekends, that would be a packed theater.
Mm-hmm.
So to see a movie like that opening weekend on a half full, maybe 2/3 full theater was kind of odd.
Are we talking everybody masked or no masks needed, or what's the rules?
I mean, the rule is mask if you want. So
Sure.
I would say the crowd was a mix of people wearing masks and people not wearing masks.
Nice.
So I'm vaccinated. My wife is vaccinated. So we feel comfortable being in a public space like that.
Yeah. I think I would too as well. Like at this point in my neighborhood, if the clerk is still wearing a mask, then I do. But if the clerks aren't wearing a mask, then I'm like, okay, I won't bother type of thing.
That's sort of my approach to it is I kind of judge each situation. I always have the mask with me. And I kind of see what what feels comfortable. Like if I'm getting my hair cut or something, I'll still wear the mask because everyone else is wearing a mask, and that's close contact with a person for 20 minutes. But
Speaking
other
of
situations,
I got a haircut this weekend, and it was my first non-mask haircut. It was so great because this beard just like they won't let me wear a bandana to get a haircut because of the way it like goes around the back of your head. They can't cut your hair.
Yeah.
So I would have, it's like one of the only situations where I would have to wear like an actual surgical style mask. And it always annoyed the crap out of me to sit there for half an hour while they snip away with this mask on. But I didn't have to do that this time. It was great. I had a nice big sign that was like, if you're vaccinated, no mask required. Not that they checked or anything, but
yeah, we're definitely on the honor system right now. But
for sure, it's weird because like just a few months ago, like no mask meant idiot, right? But nowadays, no mask means smart, unless they're a liar. Then they're still an idiot. But you wouldn't know from just looking around, right?
No, you can't tell. We don't have nope. You got to trust people.
It was very easy just, a couple short months ago to know who was an idiot and who wasn't. But now it's harder. It's like we're getting back to normal. It's hard to tell just by looking at somebody. Anyway, Zach's not contributing to this conversation. I think he's over it. Possibly.
I've got nothing to add.
Sure. All right. We're going to do a top 10 last 10 this week. Definitely a fan favorite of this podcast and a host favorite, I would say. We enjoy these as well. Otherwise, we would have stopped doing them a long, long time ago. Before we jump in, just a few housekeeping notes. There's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Search Cinereelists. Watch the podcast there while you listen to it. You could also follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast over there. And you could also leave us an Apple Podcast review. Help the show out with its search Apple Podcast rankings. Also, we got a listener email this week that Zach is going to read for us. Zach?
Yes. All right. Hi, Zach, James, and Kyle. I just listened to the first part of episode 484, where you reviewed the Disney Pixar movie Luca. I really liked your reviews. I loved the movie, and I'm also a huge Disney fan, as Zach knows, and a huge Pixar fan. I would give it 5 out of 5 stars.
All right.
Here are some things that I loved about it. Great characters. Luca, Alberto, and Julia. Love that name spelling. It's Giulia. Were so amazing. Great scenery. Love the landscape, both under the water and above the water in the Italian village. That there was a lack of romance she really liked. I know the guys mentioned this on the podcast, but I love how the kids were just friends and there was no romantic element. I like that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just a friendship movie.
Yeah. Great themes and lessons. I love finding themes in kids' movies or any movies, and I thought this one gave the following lessons or themes. You can be friends with people who are different from you. Sacrifice for others. I almost cried when Alberto sold. That's I'm not going to say that spoiler. Okay. And all families look different. Alberto didn't. I'm not going to say that either. And yeah, all families can look different. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then she says she would do a top 10 Disney Pixar movies of all time. You guys want to hear this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I will say these are all Pixar films. So like she's not including Disney that are not Pixar. Okay.
Okay.
Number 10, Luca. So Luca's 5 out of 5. So I'm guessing every movie on this list is 5 out of 5 if Luca's number 10. Number 9, Finding Dory. Number 8, Coco. Number 7, Soul. Number 6, Monsters, Inc. Number 5, Ratatouille. Number 4, Cars. Number 3, Toy Story. Number 2, Inside Out. And number 1, Finding Nemo. So she says, thanks for doing episode 44 on Luca. And it's signed a fan, Emily. And she says, P.S. I left an Apple Podcast review.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
The only one I take issue with is Cars. I mean, that...
At number 4?
Oh, come on.
You think it should be higher?
No, it shouldn't even be on the list. I hate that. That's probably my least I'd rather watch The Good Dinosaur than watch another Cars movie, to be honest.
I thought you liked Cars 2 worse than Cars.
I do like. You thought I liked Cars 2 worse than Cars?
Yeah.
What does that mean? That I like Cars 1 more than Cars 2?
That's what I thought.
He's doing like a double negative. Oh no,
no.
It's positive. I thought you liked Cars better than Cars 2.
Of all of them,
wrong?
I like Cars 3, which is weird. In fact, if I was ranking the Cars series, it would be Cars 3, Planes, the original Cars, and then Cars 2.
Okay, so I was right.
Yeah,
so
but
Cars is not your least favorite.
But as far as like franchises, Pixar franchises, or even individual films, Cars is at the bottom of the list.
Does that have anything to do with your son being of age to watch that when it came out?
He never cared about Cars. Thank the maker. It was never a thing. I didn't have to suffer through it. He liked Monsters, Inc. He liked Toy Story. He liked the good ones. He didn't like Cars. Yep. So it's a good thing I didn't have to disown him. It worked out in the end. Emily was like gentle with she loved Luca. We did not have the exact same sentiment, I would say, when it came to Luca.
I liked Luca.
And our review. I think we all liked it, but I'm not sure we loved it.
I think I loved it.
Zach definitely liked it more than you and I did, James.
Okay.
But you and I, James, we had nothing really wrong with it. I think for us, it was just so simple.
Yeah, that's true. I guess.
I mean, Zach likes the simple things. Simple people, simple things. So
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being simple.
Yeah. No, Kyle can't enjoy simple things. He needs them to be complex.
I like overwrought. That's really my jam right there.
Nice. Well, thank you for the email, Emily. We appreciate it. Just a reminder, you too can email the show, heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. Send us an email and we will read it and discuss it on the podcast. Let's talk our main topic for this week. It's a top 10, last 10.
Top 10, top 10, and top 10, and last 10, and last 10, and a last 10, last 10, and top 10, top 10, and top 10, and top 10, and last 10, last 10, and last 10, and last 10, and top 10.
AKA last 10, top 10. Take your pick. What is a top 10, last 10, Kyle?
On the spot. All right. A top 10, last 10 is where we take the last 10 movies we watched and we rank them against each other. And that's the only connective tissue. There's no theme. There's no genre. It's just last 10 chronologically, rank them 1 through 10.
Nice. Yeah. Who wants to go first? Anyone?
I'll go first.
All right.
All right.
So we used to do a lot more last 10 top 10s more often than we do now, and we've slowed down because my movie watching is slowed down, and so it takes me a while to get 10 movies on my list. And that's just a reality of having 2 young kids, I think. So I am slightly modifying my own personal rules for what I include on the last 10 top 10.
Okay.
So that I can fill in these lists a little bit quicker.
Sure.
Great.
And so what I'm going to start doing, and you guys feel free to ignore this on your own lists, but if I rewatch a movie, I will include it on the list. So traditionally, I only put new movies that I've never seen before on these lists. But I'm going to, if it's a movie I have seen before, but I rewatch for whatever reason, it's going to go on the list. Now, it's one that I talk about a lot. I'm not going to talk about it a lot on the list, but it's going to take up a slot. So just FYI.
Sounds good. I was afraid you were going to add like YouTube videos or something.
My number 8 is a TikTok video by Ad.
Okay. My number 10, this doesn't apply to. It's a documentary called Persona, The Dark Truth Behind Personality Tests. And this is like one of those documentaries that pop up on Netflix or HBO Max. I forget which. And it's all about the nefarious underbelly of personality tests. So what it purports to say is that personality tests are junk science, they're meaningless, and that they hurt lots of people because like hiring managers will use personality tests to determine if you should be hired for a certain job. And if your personality doesn't fit exactly what they're looking for, then you won't even get considered. And so people that are, maybe more introverted or neurodivergent or something like that might not get positions because hiring managers are using these personality tests. So I think that is a real issue. And what that is personality tests being misapplied. And so I think the problem there is with HR departments using personality tests for those purposes, rather than the personality tests themselves. And as far as junk science goes, I think that if you lean on personality tests too hard, that's silly. But I don't think that I think they tell you something. And what they tell you is how you see yourself. And it maybe puts it into more clearly defined descriptions than you might introspectively think of for yourself. But all it does is repeat back to you what you tell it you are. So I don't think that they're amazingly revelatory, but I think that they have a purpose in that they just clarify your own self-perception. But this documentary is very anti-personality test, and it just kind of threw everything it could throw at it. And for the most part, I felt that was relatively biased because there were some legitimate criticisms of personality tests and some that I thought were just taking them to be something that they weren't. So anyway, the documentary was fine, and it's my number 10. It's called Persona.
Zach, don't you have a favorite personality test?
I have a lot of personality tests that I like. I like Myers-Briggs, and lately I like Enneagram. I think that one's pretty fun.
You've definitely sent me multiple personality tests over the last couple of years. And be like, hey, who are you? Take this test.
Oh, I think
You're fascinated by them.
I think they're so fun to fill out. I love it. I think it's like one notch above horoscopes. I wouldn't lean too heavily on it, but I think they're fun to take.
That's great. All right. My number 10 is a 2000 film called The Werkmeister Harmonies. This is a Hungarian film. It's set during the communist era in Hungary. They didn't give it a clear year, but it looked to be like, I would say, the 80s, just kind of by the look of it. And there is a plot. I'm going to describe the plot to you, but I'm going to tell you that this plot description is way more interesting than the movie itself. And the plot is, in this unnamed Hungarian town in communist USSR, this weird circus shows up to town. And it's a circus basically made up of a dead whale carcass and a little person. And this circus causes basically a ruckus within town. And it incites the townspeople into violence, and they start committing acts of violence, and kind of everything goes crazy. Sounds super interesting. But this whole story is told through the perspective of one character, Janos, who's the town mailman. And he's basically hearing about everything that's happening. Like, he goes to visit the circus. We see the whale carcass. We never hear anything about this. We never hear about like these speeches that are given that are inciting violence. We never see what's happening. We only just hear about what's happening. And I found that incredibly frustrating to be told a movie and not shown a movie in that sense. This movie is also 145 minutes long, and it's made up of only 39 shots. So this movie does not have editing. There are lots of shots of Janos walking from one location to the next in real time. Zach, I even sent you a video of me live watching the movie. There's a scene where two characters have a conversation and they say, hey, let's go to the town square. And then we watch them walk in silence for 3 minutes to that town square. They don't talk to each other. They don't remark on anything. And the camera is like tight on their faces. So we don't even see like what's going behind them. It's just 3 minutes of them walking, and then get to the town square and have more conversations.
That sounds
just
like a
got bored.
movie Zach would love. I mean, I'm getting serious Jerry vibes from that description.
I've seen a movie by the same director, except the movie I saw was 7.5 hours long.
And that was only 20 shots, right?
Oh, and it's in black and white.
Yeah, this one's also in black and white. Yeah. And yeah, Bela Tarr is the director. So I watched this movie because it's a list movie. And I don't watch as many list movies as I used to, but anybody a list movie, I mean, these movies that pop up on like Sight and Sound Top 250, you know, they shoot pictures, don't they? Like these are all considered well-regarded films. And I've gotten to this points on list movies where the majority of them are black and white foreign pictures that are philosophical and about like the nature of faith and existence. And I will find a gem occasionally, but I'm really starting to tire on list films because they're all kind of hitting the exact same vibe at this point. Like I feel like I've seen the really unique ones, and now I'm just kind of into this existential path. I don't know, Zach. Is there anything good in my future, or should I just give up on list?
Yeah, there's certainly good things in your future. It's just it's a more complex ocean to swim in to find your gems than it was before.
It used to be like majority of list films I liked, and now it's starting to go towards majority. I'm like, I could have passed on that one. Yeah,
because you left all the slog movies for the end, so now you got to watch all the slog movies.
That's true.
You definitely did that, yeah. You self-selected the easiest low-hanging fruit.
And now here I am in the Hungarian communist era. It's about a whale, but it's really about the existence of God.
For a guy who likes everything as complex as possible, you really picked the low-hanging fruit first on this one, Kyle.
I mean, there's a difference between complex and boring, and this movie was just boring.
Sure.
The New York Times said this film was elusive and beckoned filmgoers who complain about the vapidity of Hollywood movie making and yearn for films to ponder. So do you find that this was vapid, or is this a response to the vapidity of Hollywood films?
I mean, I guess would we consider Fast 9 a vapid film?
Yeah.
Okay, then
haven't seen it yet.
Then yes, this would be a response. Bela Tarr he predicted the Fast and Furious franchise and said, we're not going down that road. We're going to discuss God.
Sure. I'll pass on that one. Sounds like not fun to watch.
If you like watching people walking, it's like watching video game cutscenes.
Oh, all right. Can't say
I will watch it eventually for sure.
Can't say I particularly love watching video game cutscenes.
And Zach, I'm sure you'll watch it and it'll be like a 4.5 star for you. You'll be like, man, just how he really drilled into the essence of mankind. It spoke to me.
You never know. My grandma actually is Hungarian, and she fled the communists when they took over in Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband died during the fleeing or whatever. So it'll be an interesting personal connection, and he does do some really great cinematography. Like it's nice to look at. So if you're gonna spend time looking at something, at least it's really well lit.
And this movie is a series of tracking shots, and there are a couple like really well executed tracking shots. So
you need to see a whale carcass. Sign me up.
Oh, I hope you enjoy it. You see that whale carcass a lot.
Okay.
Zach, when did you come to the conclusion that the movie you were watching was well lit? Like hour 6 or like 6.5? When was when were you like, this movie's really well lit, it's worth my time?
Right away.
Right away.
You it hits you.
You were like, I don't care how long this is. It's so well lit. I could watch it for 7 hours.
With lighting like this, how can I go wrong?
I am curious what I gave. The one I saw it's called Satan Tango.
Yeah.
Let me see what I gave it. I gave it 3 stars.
Okay, so a 0.5 star above what I gave Workmeister Harmonies.
Oh yeah, it's a chore for sure.
Nice.
I can safely say I will not watch Satan Tango.
Yeah, so be it.
All right. Drawing a line in the sand. My number 10 is Cherry, which is a crime drama directed by Anthony and Joe Russo of MCU fame. I think what did they direct? The Infinity War, Endgame, and Captain America: Civil War, I think, or was it?
I thought they did Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, yeah. Who did Civil War? Was that them as well?
It could have been. They kind of became the golden boys for MCU after Winter Soldier.
Yeah, for sure. So they directed this movie, Cherry, starring Tom Holland from the MCU. Also, Ciara Bravo and Jack Rayner in a supporting role. And it's fine. I mean, it's at the bottom of my list, but only because I was not necessarily disappointed by the movie. I just wasn't impressed by any of it. To be honest, as it sits right now, and maybe I just haven't seen the movies that matter in his filmography, I'm not really on the Tom Holland train. Like, I don't understand why everybody loves this guy other than the fact that he's like charming, I guess. But as an actor, like beyond just charming, he needed to bring more than that to the story that's told in Cherry. As a Spider-Man, I can see the appeal, right? Of just like the fresh-faced, charming kid. But in a movie that's about a war veteran who has PTSD, who comes back, has a hard time adjusting, and then gets involved with crime on varying levels over the course of the movie, it was just, it felt like a movie that had a lot of heavy lifting to do in the acting department. And Tom Holland, it just wasn't working for me at all. I was like, okay, I don't buy any of this, and all of it feels really, really forced when these lines are coming out of his mouth. It just didn't match for me. It doesn't help that Ciara Bravo, I got the same vibe from her as well. Jack Rayner was like a decent steadying point that comes in and out of the movie, but for the most part, it felt pretty average to me. And that's why it's my number 10.
Well, I do like Tom Holland. I find him charming.
And what have you seen him in? Spider-Man? That's pretty much it.
No. He was on Lip Sync Battle.
Okay. Sure. That deep acting exercise that is Lip Sync Battle.
Have you seen him on Lip Sync Battle, James?
Yes. He was great.
Okay, so know you're talking about then. All right.
Yeah, he cross-dressed in it. It was awesome. Totally unexpected. Loved it.
My number 9 is the only mainstream Batman film that I had never seen, and I decided to catch up with it. It is Batman Returns.
I'm excited to hear this.
Yeah, somehow I'd never seen it. I think because when it came out, it was like I was younger and it was darker, and I think my family just didn't want to take me to it. But I did, for whatever reason, collect the trading cards for Batman Returns.
Yes.
For what I remember having lots of the Batman Returns trading cards. Yeah, so this movie is interesting. It's directed by Tim Burton, a director I tend to really not like. And he's so, I hate to say is so one-dimensional as a director, but he just keeps drawing from the same well on very specific things. Like all of his female characters in all of his movies have the same hair. It's really odd. It's like disheveled, frizzy hair that's like up. I don't know. It's very like Michelle Pfeiffer in this was just Helena Bonham Carter. It was odd. He really has certain things that he always goes back to. Anyways,
it's Edward Scissorhands and hair.
Yeah, for sure. I thought this movie was interesting. It was definitely worth seeing. I don't think that it was good. It was super dark. I mean, the Penguin played by Danny DeVito is super just evil. He's really gross in how he treats people. And Michelle Pfeiffer plays Catwoman, and she plays it very broadly. You know, like before, when she's just Selena Kyle, she's just a complete caricature. And Michael Keaton, I think, is a good Batman, but there is so little Batman in this movie. it's very under Batman for a Batman movie. You don't even really see Batman except for 1-2 minute fight scene. He's not in the first half an hour of the film. And he has very little to do, and he is mostly just kind of standing around as Bruce Wayne thinking. I think it's barely a Batman movie. It's mostly a Penguin movie with a little Catwoman. It's kind of an oddity, so I think it's worth seeing for that reason. But I wouldn't say that it's good, and I wouldn't say that I was enjoying myself watching it just because it's so gray and black. That's the color tone, gray and black. And just really dark characters that, and I thought Batman doesn't kill people. Isn't that the big thing? And when Batman sometimes almost kills someone, all the fans are up in arms. Batman straight up kills multiple people in this movie, and he has very few fight scenes. So his fight to kill ratio is really high. I mean, one guy he blew up with explosives, another guy he lit on fire and just left him. So I don't know.
That guy was probably just scarred for life. I don't think he died.
Yeah,
he would have. He suffered consumption.
I think you're getting Batman confused with Superman. Superman never kills anybody. Batman will kill somebody in the midst of a fight. He's not going to kill somebody
Batman,
in cold blood. But
no, Batman will not kill someone. That's Batman's thing.
That's a traditional.
In Dark Knight, he resisted not killing.
Yeah, back in the 50s, that was a Batman thing. But by the 80s, he was killing people in the heat of battle. He wasn't hanging somebody and then lighting them on fire. He was, they get caught on fire. He doesn't put them out type of stuff. So I don't know.
We don't have motion here, but I think Batman's thing is he doesn't kill. That's why in The Dark Knight, he wouldn't kill the Joker.
Yeah.
I mean, he won't just kill somebody for the point of killing them. But if it comes down to it and it's him or them, he's going to kill them.
I don't think that's true, though. Is that
that is absolutely
true? Give me a thing. Give me a thing.
I don't know.
All right.
I'm telling you that's true.
That was Batman Returns.
I can tell you it's true because you've already given examples of it being true.
Right. But that surprised me because Batman doesn't kill. So it was the exception rather than he does kill.
I don't
he's known for him and Superman are both known for not killing.
I think we're misunderstanding our definitions of killing.
Okay, so my definition of killing is the taking of a life. Does anyone else have a different definition?
Sure, but there's a difference between actually, let's say he goes to hunt him. He's a detective, right? He's literally hunting people. He's not hunting them to assassinate them. He's hunting them to get some information from them or whatever. And in the course of battle, the other person dies. Right? So somebody dying over the course of battle is very different than him just going to kill somebody. Those are different things, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm looking at a Polygon article right now that says why Batman stopped killing people in 1940 and why that's been his default for 8 decades.
Okay. But Batman didn't stop killing people. He may have stopped killing people in 1940, but by the 80s, when comic books got hot again and he was back to the Dark Knight, he was killing people.
I mean, if it's Frank Miller, he's definitely killing people.
Yeah, but The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller was non-canon.
I'm just saying, they dropped the idea of Batman as a goody two-shoes who never kills somebody a long time ago. And this movie was a reflection of that. The Burton Batman movies, the reason why they were popular is because they weren't based on the old cheesy Batman. Because this Batman would allow somebody to die in the process of a battle. He's not going to be cruel about it, drop somebody off a building on purpose or not save them on purpose. But if they die in the heat of battle, that's how it goes.
I mean, unless you can point to me to somewhere where he does that, I think that
you already mentioned
him
it.
in this movie. No, that's what I'm saying. Him in this movie, that wasn't traditional Batman. You're saying traditional Batman would let people die in the heat of battle. I'm saying he wouldn't, and that's why this movie goes against that.
I understand that your ideal of Batman is that he never kills anybody. But the Batman that people reacted to in the movie theaters in 1989 and like the early 90s or whenever Batman Returns came, that was the Batman people wanted to see. The Batman that became in the 80s, which is the Batman that when a bad guy does a bad thing and in the heat of battle he dies, this Batman doesn't worry about it too much. So I understand that like you're not excited about that portrayal, but that's the portrayal of that Batman from that time.
Can you point to anything besides Batman Returns where he let someone die?
I don't remember the movies that well. I'll tell you that by the time Joel Schumacher took over it, which was the next movie, it reverted quite a bit and also was less successful.
Sure. Okay, so just this movie then.
This movie, the first movie.
He let someone die in the first movie?
I don't remember. It's been a long time.
The Joker.
The Joker. He let the Joker die?
Yeah, the Joker
remember.
definitely dies in the first movie.
And Batman let that happen?
Batman was there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into this. I don't have enough background knowledge to
If you really
definitively
want me
say
to-
if he does not kill or not.
If you really want me to give you an example, I'm happy to rewatch it. I've got it in 4K. I need a reason to rewatch it for sure. But I can't tell you off the top of my head movies that I haven't seen in 10 to 15 years, the exact scene where that happens. And
Okay.
maybe it's not there
Please-
and my memory's off. That's possible
Please
too.
do. Because we'll move on. My understanding is that Batman is the same as Superman in that he will go out of his way to make sure people don't die.
And is that the Batman that you remember in the Nolan films?
No. That is just that is who Batman is in like every iteration. That's who he's supposed to be. And if you break from that, then I think Batman fans understand that's not who Batman is. That's my understanding of it. It's the same way like Superman has killed people, but then Superman fans are like, well, yeah, but that's not who Superman is. He's not supposed to kill people.
Right. Yeah, he killed one person in Man of Steel. But that was like he literally snapped a guy's neck when he didn't have to, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Batman does that. I don't remember if he's ever been that callous about killing somebody versus like knocking them off the side of a building or, something like that. I don't know. I don't remember particulars, obviously. But
If you are more knowledgeable about Batman than us listeners, please write in and let us know tell us more.
Sure. The next time we have Motion on for one reason or another,
Yeah.
remind me to bring this up. We'll let him weigh
Yeah.
in because he's definitely more of an authority than you and I on this.
For sure.
For sure. My number 9 is am I next or is Kyle next? Kyle's next.
Kyle.
Go ahead,
I
Kyle.
think I'm next. That's all right. Zach, I did see Batman Returns in theater when it came out, and I was 9 years old. And I definitely felt like I should not be watching that movie at that time in that theater. I was like, this seems to be outside my league right now.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, but not sure which friend's parent let us go to that, but it was awesome. All right, my number 9. This is actually a favorite of Zach's. I don't think it's a top 100, but it's probably a top 300. This is Jumper from 2008. This top 300 for you, Zach?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. This is directed by Doug Liman and stars Hayden Christensen. Hayden Christensen plays a teenage boy and eventually then later a man who discovers he's a jumper, which means he has the ability to teleport anywhere in the world. And when we catch up with him, he is being chased by Samuel L. Jackson, who's leading this group called the Paladins, who hate jumpers. He hunts jumpers, I guess because they're unnatural. There's some, they're mutants. They're not created by God, the aspect of it. That's why they're called the Paladins. So Hayden Christensen is on the run from Samuel L. Jackson to try and stay alive. But twist, his high school girlfriend crush, Rachel Bilson, who he appears to after 10 years of being gone, is on the run with him. If you can't tell, I thought this was a silly movie.
Well, yeah, it's about people transporting places.
Well, okay, but it's not a...
It's not Bellatar.
Oh, yeah, that was great. No, so the concept of this movie I thought was really interesting. The idea that there are like people with this, a certain group of people with their mutants, let's call them that, right? That's not X-Men, but that's what they are, who have this ability to teleport, and then they are being hunted by people who are like, this isn't right, or they shouldn't be able to have this power. That is a totally fine concept. But what this movie really wants to focus on is the Hayden Christensen, Rachel Bilson relationship, because when he's like 15, he's on a date with her. He accidentally teleports for the first time. He disappears for 10 years. And what does he do after 10 years? He's like, I'm going to look up my high school crush. And she sees him and immediately she falls back in love with him. And I just don't buy that if like you went on a date with someone once 10 years ago and then they appear again, you're like, oh my goodness, let's go to Rome together.
Oh, I totally buy that.
You would totally buy that. Okay.
No, people pine after their high school crushes.
Yeah,
especially if they disappeared.
Yeah.
And then they saw him again.
So what I'm saying is my problem with this movie is not the concept, but instead of focusing on what could have been a very interesting world of jumpers and who's hunting them, and there's cool tech, and we learn a little bit about like his family, but that's kind of like this tertiary story. Instead, the main focus is more like a mid-2000s romance comedy with a sci-fi elements to it. That being said, this is directed by Doug Liman, who has done things like Live, Die, Repeat, and the jump-based action sequences are very interesting, and they're very creative. How Hayden Christensen and these other jumpers use the space and their power to fight Samuel L. Jackson and the people are hunting him. So there are interesting moments. I gave this 3 stars. So I did enjoy watching this, but I definitely think it could have been a better movie. And Doug Liman has obviously done better, as we've seen.
Maybe you would have liked it more if you saw it in the mid-2000s.
I would have liked this less if I saw this in the 2000s. I was like mid-2000s. I was at my most movie snobbish.
Gotcha.
So I definitely would have been like, ugh, Anakin, no thank you.
I gotcha. Yeah.
I've been listening to you talk about this for like 5 minutes. I've seen it and I don't remember a word of it. Honestly.
But you got to rewatch it then.
You don't remember
like a fresh take.
The high school crush romance?
No, I don't remember any of it. I remember the movie exists and that Anakin's in it. That's about it.
Yeah.
He's good.
My number 9 is also a movie I will forget very soon. It's titled Those Who Wish Me Dead. It's written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, who's also the writer of Sicario and the writer-director of Hell or High Water, 2 movies that I enjoy quite a bit. This one stars Angelina Jolie and Finn Little. Never seen Finn Little in a movie, I don't believe. He's a child actor. Angelina Jolie plays a fire person who works in a tall fire tower in the middle of a forest, and she's looking out for forest fires. And she comes across this kid who's on the run because he has a piece of information that these very cliched gangsters want to get from him. And so she doesn't fully realize the extent of the issue, but she's found this lost kid. And so she takes him back to the tower and they're just kind of hanging out while she figures out what's going on. Meanwhile, the bad guys decide they're going to create like a big chaotic scene to try to flush out the kid from the forest. And they decide to start a forest fire. And so the forest fire, which they thought that it wouldn't be a big deal to start a forest fire, of course, rages out of control. And you end up with the rest of the movie where Angelina Jolie is dragging this kid around trying to save his life from like one action sequence to another as these bad guys are pursuing them and trying to catch up with them. And it was all right. I mean, I gave it a 2.5. It was a decent enough, like completely mindless afternoon watch. But it's one of those movies where I just kind of was watching it and thinking, she had to have done this for a paycheck. Like there's no possible chance she looked at the words on the page and said, this will be a challenge for me. Like in any way, shape or form, other than like, I just want to go make a movie that I don't have to like do any heavy lifting on. which I understand. Like, I respect Angelina Jolie. I think she's a great actress. I think she's a great director too. Like, what was the name of that movie? It was like a war movie. Not Uncharted, something. It didn't get much play, but I enjoyed it quite a bit from just a few years ago.
Is that about the POW?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on it.
Undeterred, unbreakable,
Something like
unbroken.
Unbroken. I think that's correct. Unbroken.
Okay.
Unbroken's great, and people generally ignored it the year it came out, and I think it's worth at least one watch for sure. So I respect Angelina Jolie as a creative, which is why, as I watched this movie, it kind of felt like one of those movies that Bruce Willis is in these days, or like Nicolas Cage, that literally could be written for anybody. And instead of them getting the job, Angelina Jolie took it. And I was like, I don't get why she's in this, because it's way below, I think, what her typical output is as far as like reaching for the stars when she goes for something. Like, this is not a movie where she was reaching for the stars. It felt like a movie where she was reaching for a paycheck. And so, yeah, it was very average to me. Thus, my number 9 on the list.
Nice. My number 8 is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the Disney animated film. Specifically, the 45-minute cut that I watched with my daughter.
Wait, did you edit it for her?
I did, yes.
Will you tell us what you took out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So pretty much anything with the evil queen is out of the movie. So
there's
Why?
no antagonist, basically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Why remove that from the movie?
She's
It's a little scary.
Yeah, she's super scary. There's like, she poisons Snow White. She is just jealous and only concerned about looks. And she tells the huntsman to cut out her heart with an axe. And I didn't think my 2-year-old needed to have those images in her mind. But the rest of the movie is like just fun goofiness with a bunch of dwarves and animals and stuff like that. So yeah, the movie starts with Snow White singing with birds at a well, and then she wakes up in a forest and she goes into the house, and then the dwarves come home and there's hijinks. Then the dwarves leave for the mine, and then she wakes up in a coffin. She with the prince, and they go off to the cloud castle in the sky.
I can't believe this.
And it's great. My daughter loves it. We watch it a ton.
Yeah, of course she loved it. All the drama was removed from
Yeah,
it. It's just a happy
like,
adventure at this point.
We sing, we dance, and then everything's happy, right? Like, just show her like Barbie Magic Castle or whatever.
Well, so that's the thing. I could show her Barbie Magic Castle, but Snow White is much better than Barbie Magic Castle, and it's my edited version is the same level of scariness. And yeah, the dwarves are all. She thinks the dwarves are all hilarious. Sometimes she'll pretend to be dopey and do things and all that kind of stuff. So it's super fun watching with her. I think the movie's fairly tedious. The dwarves take 20 minutes to do anything. Like they have to wash up for dinner, and that's 20 minutes. They have to see who snuck into their house. That takes 20 minutes. It's like they're very slow to accomplish any task.
And at that point, that's the whole movie for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, the majority of the movie is they want to see who broke into their house, and then they have to wash up for dinner. That's a half the movie right there.
I want you to edit a Tarantino movie for her and be like, all right, we're gonna watch Pulp Fiction. And then just
like 2
no, it would
minutes
just
long.
be a bunch of mundane conversations.
Yeah, like 5 minutes later, it would just be like, and that was Pulp Fiction. What'd you think, dear?
Yeah, no, I just don't think my 2-year-old needs to see like a huntsman contemplating murdering Snow White with an axe to enjoy dopey and grumpy hijinks, you know?
why not just wait then? Instead of being like, here's the sanitized version, why not say, okay, when you're 4, let's watch Snow White?
Because the
there's
alternative
other
then-
things she can watch besides Snow White. It's not like there's a dearth of movies out there.
No, totally agree. But the alternatives are all like worse. They're all like really just silly, mundane cartoons that are just like so pointless and like no one considers art or anything like that. So why waste time on that just so she can get the full version later, you know?
Right, but you understand that that's what you've turned Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs into.
Yeah,
right?
you've taken away all the drama of it. It's all the excitement.
Like
it
all
means
all the good stuff, all the things that make it heightened over all that other drivel, you've taken out and turned it into a very good-looking drivel. But
it's incredibly. It's the first animated drivel.
Right.
No. I totally disagree. The things that make Snow White special are not all the parts I took out and none of the parts I left in. The parts where the dwarves are like exploring the house and stuff like that, those are the iconic images. Them coming home from the mine singing "Hi Ho." Those are all the iconic things. And
the lightning bolt striking the tree.
All of that is better than a random episode of Paw Patrol.
Maybe. When you present these to her, is this, we're going to watch Snow White now? Or is it, we're going to watch this hack version of Snow White that Daddy edited? Because
we're going to watch Snow White.
Well, she's going to grow up thinking that's
Snow White
when it's not Snow White. It's your version of Snow White.
She's 2.
So
she's going to have no memory of this when she's older.
Not true. Not
what's
true.
What is your earliest memory, Kyle? How old were you?
My earliest
4,
memory.
5?
No. Earlier than that. My earliest memory is of my mother changing my brother's diaper. So I was.
What a weird memory.
2. I know, it's a very strange memory. I was between 2.5 and 3 for that memory. I don't know why that's my first memory, but it was in our first house, and I remember like standing next to her, next to the changing table, and she's changing my brother's diaper.
What's the first movie you remember watching?
The first movie I remember watching is probably Wizard of Oz, maybe.
How old would you have been?
This would again be Massachusetts, so 4.
Okay, yeah. So she's half that.
Yeah, but I'm just so when can she see the scary stuff? Like when can she see Snow White in its entirety? When can she see 101 Dalmatians and accept that Cruella is a character in that movie?
Oh, I guess I have no idea. I only know her as a 2-year-old really well. Maybe as a 3-year-old, I'll think she can handle it. You know what I mean? But I just don't. I don't know very much about like what she'll be like then. But as of right now, I don't need her, scared to eat apples.
I let my 2-year-old watch Star Wars. And he was like, what happened to that guy's arm? I'm like, oh, he got cut off by a lightsaber.
Nice.
All right. I am not questioning your parenting. I just want to
I do not care. I think it's wonderful.
I don't question your parenthood in general on this particular subject. I think maybe you could just wait till she can see the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it would be just fine.
I mean, yes, I could wait, but in the meantime, we're going to be watching something.
Sure.
And I just think like what would you guys suggest that would be better?
Oh, Curious George.
Why?
Because that is a interesting, well-animated, watchable movie that is completely kid-appropriate.
I
think you can
Rescuers.
find good kid-appropriate. Yeah, I think you can find good kid-appropriate movies for a 2-year-old without having to cut down other ones.
I don't know. I kind of enjoy cutting them down for stuff. And I think the 7 Dwarves are much more interesting to play act as than Curious George and the Man in the Yellow Hat.
You haven't seen Curious George yet.
Curious George is just naughty, isn't he?
It's kind of reductive.
He's just constantly getting into trouble.
He's not naughty. He's naive.
Okay. So he's not naughty?
I mean, it's not that he's like evil. He's not doing it on purpose. He's just
agreed.
He is a chimpanzee or monkey who is taken from the jungle, put in the city. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I think kids can relate to Curious George.
I can't believe we're
'Cause he's exploring his
attacking
world.
Curious George on this podcast.
Yeah, right. Like, when did Curious George become the bad guy in this conversation? Okay, moving on. This is gonna be a very long episode. I'm predicting this already because we're at number 8 for me.
Yeah.
This is a 1992 film called Last of the Mohicans. This movie takes place during the French Indian War in the colonies, which is like around the 1750s, 1760s. This is when New France, which we now know as basically Eastern Canada, north of the Great Lakes, was invading the British colonies. Daniel Day-Lewis, he's the star of this movie. He plays a man called Hawkeye who was raised by Mohicans as a kid. So it's him, his adopted father, and his, I guess, adopted brother. You can call it that. And they get caught up within this French Indian War, this conflict between the French and the British, when they rescue a British officer and a woman who gets ambushed by the Native Americans that are supporting the French. And then you're kind of seeing the war play out through his eyes as he's fighting for the British, fighting against the British, protecting the colonies, all that. It was interesting watching a historical war film in this era. I don't think we've obviously had like Revolutionary War films, but not a lot from like the time when America was colonized, but not actually an independent country yet. I really appreciated that Daniel Day-Lewis was not playing a Native American. That was kind of my fear going into this movie. And I'm glad that he was like, okay, no, he's playing a white man who was just raised with Native Americans. So we dodged a bullet there. There is I guess you can call it like an evil. There's an antagonist on the Hurons, the other tribe, played by Wes Studi, he's a well-known. I think he's Cherokee. He's a well-known actor, and I did find his character a bit of like the stereotype. He spoke in third person. People talked to him in third person. He was really bloodthirsty for scalps, and I just kind of felt like, okay, this feels a little bit like, all right, a Native American stereotype, but this is a well-directed movie. It's directed by Michael Mann. There are some great battle scenes in it, and the final 15 minutes, I would say, are some of the best 15 minutes I've seen on screen. They're nearly wordless, and they're telling the entire story through like facial features, through music, and just through action. And I was riveted by the final 15 minutes of this movie. It was really a chance for Michael Mann to shine. So this was a cool movie to check out. I remember hearing about this as a kid, and for some reason it's had a reputation as being like a really violent film. And I didn't find it any more violent than the other rated R movie with tomahawks and arrows, but I've also, maybe it's just been desensitized to all that as I've watched movies like Revenant, so who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe they've gotten a bit more extreme over time. So the standards
maybe this was
up.
violent for 90. Right, this could have been violent for 1992, but
yeah,
it was an interesting Daniel Day-Lewis performance where he's not like going full method on a character. He's just kind of acting in a movie.
Nice. Yeah, nowadays he can't do a movie unless like a big deal is made of him just completely dissolving into the role. Like he can't just show up and act and people move on. They got to make a big deal out of it.
Maybe for all I know, he did go live like as a Mohican person for 2 months, and then, but it seemed like more he was just there in the movie and just there.
Sure. My number 8 is an American comedy titled Cadillac Man. This is from 1990, and it stars Robin Williams. Have you guys ever seen Cadillac Man?
I haven't, no.
I've heard of this.
I hadn't either. It's, I mean, not that I've seen every Robin Williams movie, but I feel like I've seen a lot of them from this time period. This was just a few years after Good Morning Vietnam was released. I think, what's the movie where they stand up on the tables and they talk about poetry? Dead Poets Society.
Dead Poets Society.
I think Dead Poets Society was like a year before or a year after this. So it's definitely like in the wheelhouse of when I was watching Robin Williams movies as a kid as they were being released. But for some reason I missed this one. And It's okay. I mean, this is lower tier Robin Williams, I would say, from the time. I mean, this I wouldn't say Cadillac Man comes up in too many conversations when people are talking Robin Williams films, and it's pretty justified for sure. He plays a car salesman who is cheating on his wife with somebody from the car dealership, and that woman's husband, who's kind of this unhinged motorcyclist, who is played by Tim Robbins. He finds out about it and comes to the dealership and like holds it hostage, and then there's like a hostage situation. But it's a comedy, so it's like a bunch of people playing big characters, like way over the top, trying to match Robin Williams with some of the delivery. And Fran Drescher kind of plays the woman in the middle. And
Fran Drescher.
The movie was a lot, and it didn't really do much for me in the end, nor did it it felt like they were trying to shoehorn Robin Williams and his style into a script that already existed, as opposed to like him really finding material that fit his natural style. So my number 8, Cadillac Man.
Nice. Well, my number 7 is 101 Dalmatians. This is the Disney animated film, specifically the 35-minute version that I edited for my daughter. And in this special edition, there's no Cruella de Vil.
So again, it's just about puppies.
Yes.
Unlike Paw Patrol, which is about puppies.
For sure. Whereas your average episode of Paw Patrol is disposable and kind of annoying. Whereas 101 Dalmatians is a beloved property. And yeah.
Not because of Cruella or because someone's trying to steal the Dalmatians.
I think that the puppy part of 101 Dalmatians is better than your average episode of Paw Patrol.
Okay.
And yeah, so there's no Cruella. So there's the whole romance at the beginning between
Poncho,
Perdita, and Pongo.
Pongo, thank you.
And then they have 15 puppies, and then the puppies are missing, and so they do this whole telephone game with all the dogs in the city, in the country. Then they find the dogs escape, whatever. I do have the two henchmen of Cruella de Vil in there because they're just kind of bumbling and funny. And anyways, my daughter plays the Dalmatians rolling around in soot and becoming Labradors to hide from, the henchmen. She plays that every day. She'll roll around in soot at some point. And so it's super fun, very age appropriate. And we have a great time with it. So the story to 101 Dalmatians is so thin. I mean, they meet, they have dogs, and then they spend 25 minutes conveying the message that puppies are missing. We never find out where the other puppies come from. And then they just take a long time to find their way home, and then they get home. It's a very thin plot, but it's super fun, and it's been really fun to play 101 Dalmatians with my daughter. So for that reason, it just edges out Snow White.
I'll admit I forgot that it was only 15 puppies in the litter, and that the other 96 or 86 came from were just other stolen dogs. In my memory, they had 101 dogs from the litter. It was kind of fantastical.
Well, and there's only 99 puppies because it makes 101 because of the two parents.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
But apparently it's just 15, and then the other ones are something else.
I don't know why there's a kids movie specifically about little cute puppies where the main plot element is that a woman wants to skin them and make a coat.
Because
that seems crazy to me.
Because it was the 60s and kids movies were a lot different 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
What
and
about Mary?
It's about the worst thing you could do to a puppy, right? I can't think of anything much worse.
No. Yeah.
What about Mary Poppins? Would you show that to your daughter?
Yeah. I showed Mary Poppins. I don't think she'd be interested in Mary Poppins yet. I've shown her things that she just has no interest in whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I think it really has to be cute animals doing something funny.
Star Wars. Boom. You got Chewbacca. You got a bar full of cute animals.
Yeah, I think she would find that so boring.
I really hope the rest of your list is edited Disney movies.
Well, we will see.
That'll bring me so much joy.
We will see.
My number 8 is actually a movie that you guys discussed on the podcast when I was gone, I believe. This is Oxygen from 2021. And how much should I get into this? I know you guys discussed it, and you did your own spoiler section, correct?
Yeah.
So should you want me to keep this high level?
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Okay, I'll keep it high. Well, I didn't know this. It's been discussed, so I'll keep it high level. So this movie stars Melanie Laurent, and she wakes up in a cryo chamber, and she is not sure why she's there. She has no memory. She has a limited ability to communicate with the outside world, and through the course of the movie, she, and then us as the audience, is slowly trying to figure out how she got in the cryo chamber, why she got in the cryo chamber, and can she escape from it? That's all I'm gonna leave it at. But what makes this movie work so well is Melanie Laurent. The movie is basically a one-woman show, and it's her inside this tiny pod for the majority of the movie. There are some flashbacks to other events with other actors, that are filmed outside, but for the most part, it's her reacting to nothing, just nothing to act off of, just acting off of herself. And she is great in this movie. Obviously, this is a movie where there's going to be twists and surprises, but they all were satisfying and made sense within the context of this movie. And it's a movie that it kept working into the third act. A lot of I guess you can call high concept sci-fi movies sometimes lose steam in the third act. Like the first two, they set up a really great story and they're not sure how to resolve it. I thought this movie did a great job of kind of bringing it all together. It even pulls off a jump scare in the movie. Like a movie about a person trapped in a cryopod had one moment that actually got me to jump out of my seat a little bit. So I thought this was a overall pretty successful thriller, having no knowledge about it at all going into it.
Nice. Was it fun to listen to us talk about it after watching it?
It was.
Was it a throwback?
I was like, all right, this is what it was like being, on the other side of it all. And again, I think I did the thing where I started texting Zach, like, actually, this is what I remember from the movie.
Yeah.
So it was also fun. I wish I could have contributed because there's things you guys were talking about where I feel like I could have clarified in the moment also, but that's all right.
Nice. My number 7 is a movie from 2020 titled The Paper Tigers. This is my first 3.5 on this list. So it's a movie I definitely enjoyed. It's not going to be a classic or anything like that, but it was a good watch for me. This is a martial arts movie with a little bit of a twist. So you remember like movies like Old Dogs or Space Cowboys, where you have like these old actors who are now doing this thing that they shouldn't be doing at their age? It's basically that, but with martial arts. You got these guys who are like superstar martial artists, and they are adopted by this sensei who teaches them how to be awesome. And then you fast forward the story and they're like in their mid 40s, and 2 of them are super out of shape. And one of them has become like a boxing gym owner. So he's in shape, but he hasn't been practicing martial arts in forever. And through a series of plot circumstances, they get into fights and have to use their martial arts again after not having used it for a long time. And it's an action comedy, and I had a lot of fun with it. Literally, the only reason I watched it is because it has a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I was like, wow, what is this martial arts movie that has a 98%? And like I said, it's not anything that you're going to like have to put on your shelf or run home and tell everybody about, but it's absolutely, if you like martial arts movies and you like what's the name of that guy who did like Shanghai Soccer and those types of movies.
Stephen Chow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a Stephen Chow movie, but if you liked the idea of that movie, where it's like, oh, it's going to be a martial arts movie, but there's going to be comedy involved, it's way less wacky than Stephen Chow movies, but it just has a comedic edge with interesting martial arts, and I had fun with it. It was definitely a fun watch. Completely in English, and yeah. If you like martial arts movies or comedies, check it out. My number 7.
Nice. Very cool. All right. My number 6 is from 1963. This is a full version film called Charade. And this stars Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn and Walter Matthau.
You showed your daughter charades? Man, you're an awful dad.
I watched this by myself.
Oh, okay.
No, she likes hijinks capers.
Yeah. No, she's allowed to watch any movie from 1920s because that's decade appropriate.
Can she watch Freaks?
Was that in the 20s or the 30s?
I believe it was in the 20s.
I know it's pre-code, but yeah, why not?
What about Faust?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Haxon?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right.
If she asks to watch those, you'll let her watch them, right?
Yeah, Freaks is 32.
Oh, okay.
So she has to wait till next year.
She really likes reenacting Faust Deal with the Devil scene. It's one of her. When I was visiting, she was like, "You be Faust, I be the devil." Fine,
if she can
again.
conceptually understand what's happening.
Yep.
Then yeah. Okay, so Charade is the Hitchcock film he never made, basically. It's kind of a suspense romance thriller where you're never sure who's telling the truth, who's lying, who's on what side. It all centers around Audrey Hepburn. Her husband, estranged husband, dies, and she finds out that he had $250,000, and everyone's trying to get it, you know. And she meets this guy named played by Cary Grant, who's flirting with her. Anyways, the movie is funny, sometimes a little zany, but it's definitely twisty in the sense of you don't know how it's going to end. And I appreciated that. I think there is some chemistry between Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn, and I love the dialogue. I think it's kind of witty and snappy, and yeah, I had a good time with it. I was able to get my hands on a Criterion Blu-ray copy of this, and so it was fun to watch and like the best presentation that's available for home use, and so that was really fun. And yeah, I would say that I enjoyed this one quite a bit.
This has been my refers to a significant amount.
This has been my list for a while, so I've been on the fence on it. But if you give it a thumbs up,
yeah, it's just a great 60s kind of thriller romp, suspense romp. You know,
cool. Not to beat a dead horse, we're gonna back up here a little bit.
Okay.
You've let your daughter watch Robin Hood, correct?
Oh yeah,
in its entirety.
No, an edited version of Robin
okay,
Hood.
so she didn't see like characters in stockades and
no,
raccoons.
She sees characters in stockades and the raccoons, but she doesn't see where the castle's on fire at the end. Because when I was a kid, I was terrified of fires until I was like 9 because of the fire at the end of Robin Hood.
But so how do you explain stockades and why they're in prison? And
she just doesn't notice those things or care.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
How would you know? How would you know if she noticed them?
I mean, I know my daughter really well.
Like if she was acting out stockades, is that what you mean?
She's like, all right, you be the raccoon and I'll be the dog.
I've probably watched Robin Hood with her maybe 30 times. And you just know what she's clued into and what she's not. You know, like the things that she's interested in, she'll repeat a million times. And other things she just doesn't even think about.
Zach is just teaching his child to ignore marginalized people. Like you don't see that.
No comment,
I guess. Yeah. Wow.
Hey, it's not my parenting. My number 6. This is actually a movie that Zach and I watched together while we were in Florida. It's a movie I started watching over a year ago, and I watched 10 minutes of it. And I stopped. I said, Zach, we have to watch this together when I come see you in March of 2020. That didn't happen. But finally, in June of 2021, Zach and I were able to watch Dolomite from 1975 together. This is I guess you call this a blaxploitation movie. It is starring Rudy Ray Moore, who is kind of the brainchild of Dolomite. It's this character that he created, which he finally put on screen. And this objectively is not a good movie. The acting isn't good. The cinematography is not good. The directing isn't good. The editing's bad. The fight scenes are poorly choreographed. Rudy Ray Moore's kung fu is the laziest kung fu I've ever seen on screen before. But somehow this all works into an incredibly enjoyable movie to watch because it has all these cliches I'm not as familiar with the blaxploitation genre, but everything I expect to be from this movie, from this genre, I was seeing there. And it had this huge connection to Pootie Tang because Pootie Tang, as we know, is a satire send-up homage to blaxploitation. And seeing Dolomite and all those same threads really kind of brought it all together for me. I can't say that this is a good movie on paper, but as a interesting movie to watch and just kind of a zany movie and a movie that I was just amazed was made in the first place, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to add a half movie to this because I also watched Dolomite Is My Name, and I don't want to talk twice about Dolomite on this list. So that was also just fun to watch. Eddie Murphy was doing more of I wouldn't say he was doing like a Rudy Ray Moore impression so much as just sort of like trying to capture his essence. He was definitely playing Eddie Murphy as that role, but it was fun to see kind of the backgrounds and to see how the Dolomite character came to be and how this movie came to be. One of the best parts about Dolomite, both the character and the movie, is he does these comedic raps. Like the movie will just stop, and for 3 minutes, he'll be like walking out of a store with people around him. Then he'll just stop in the middle of the parking lot and give like this 3-minute rap that's a story about like a monkey in Africa or something like that. It's hilarious. It is not appropriate whatsoever. And that was kind of Rudy Ray Moore's thing. And he was actually like an early rapper in that sense of how he could kind of weave these stories together. And it carried from there. So I don't know, James, have you seen Dolomite Is My Name?
I have, but I have not seen the original Dolomite.
I think you should check out the original Dolomite, especially now that you've seen kind of the making of movie and kind of where this came from. I think you'll really enjoy the actual movie itself.
All right. I'll add it to the list. Sounds good. My number, what are we on? 6 is
6.
Feels Good Man, which is a documentary that came out last year, I believe, maybe the year before. I don't remember. And it's a documentary about Pepe the Frog, which, if you don't know, is a little cartoon drawing of a frog that has been passed around the internet as a meme for years now. Maybe even a decade, because it originated on MySpace and over time kind of became like just a general frog that people use to be funny. He's got kind of like this sarcastic, weird, joyous look on his face. And so I think people used it kind of like as just a reaction image of sorts. But over time, it turned from this kind of fun thing that people pass around into a fun thing that racists pass around online. Like it was basically co-opted by the alt-right as kind of like a rallying graphic that they would pass around. I don't know. It's specifically supporters of Donald Trump, I would say, have co-opted it. I mean, they literally like gave it Donald Trump's hairstyle and stuff like that. And yeah, so the documentary kind of tracks the path of this fairly innocent drawing that originated on MySpace to symbol of hate, enough that it was officially entered as a symbol of hate into like the Jewish symbols of hate registry or something like that. I forget the exact entity, but
the
it's
Southern
officially
Poverty Law Center.
That's what it is. Southern Poverty Law Center officially stamped it a hate symbol. So there's a lot of interviews with the creator of this frog, Pepe the Frog, and he's such a chill guy who is generally not riled up by things. He's also somebody who kind of grew up not necessarily with the internet, but like was there when the internet became a thing and understands kind of when you put something on the internet, and once you put it out there, it's kind of out of your control. Like people are going to do with it what they're going to do with it. Certainly, he was kind of amused by the fact that people passed it around a lot. And then once the wrong people started passing it around a lot, he didn't like that, but he also didn't feel like he had any power to stop them. And so the first 2/3 of the documentary are like about Pepe and then about its owner. And then the last third is like, well, can you actually do something about it? Like if you're the copyright holder of something that's been turned into a symbol of hate officially, can you legally do something about that? What does that look like? And number 2, can you redeem your character on your own versus the internet? And I enjoyed the documentary. I thought it was an interesting examination of like a meme that runs out of that the creator has completely lost control of. Also the responsibility of a creator when their thing is used for harm, when they're not the one using it for harm, but they're also not stopping other people from doing it. I thought those were interesting questions. And I liked some of the animation that they intercut over the course of the documentary. I thought that gave it a fairly unique feel. The problem with the documentary is the guy who created the drawing is boring. Like on camera, he's just such a dry, fairly like this is obviously the most interesting thing about him for sure. Absolutely 100% is that this thing that he drew turned into a thing. And it's also 100% a thing that he didn't care about until it became a symbol of hate. And then he was like, oh, I should probably care about this because I'm associated with it, whether I like it or not. And that's when he starts to not even get upset about it, just in his very calm and cool way, be like, okay, let's figure out how to take care of this. So there's like an energy that the filmmakers, you can tell, are trying to interject into the movie. But then every time they need another piece of the puzzle to be spoken out loud, they got to cut to this guy who's delivering it in the most boring way possible. And that's like my one slight on the movie. I mean, I don't know what you do if like your main subject just isn't a ball of personality. You do what you can with it, and I think they definitely did that here. But it's overall a documentary that I enjoyed. I think I expected a lot of it because it has like a really high Rotten Tomatoes score. It's definitely about a topic I'm interested in, and it didn't 100% get there for me, but it was good enough. My number 6.
Nice. Well, my number 5 is Dolomite, which was Kyle's number 6. Yeah, I agree with what he said. I thought it was super fun to watch, especially with a friend.
Yeah.
You never knew what was going to happen next, and it was just from moment to moment, it was fun to watch. Some bad movies are just tedious to watch, but this one kept surprising us, and it was a lot of fun. So I enjoyed watching Dolomite a lot. And I haven't seen My Name is Dolomite, but I'm excited to watch that as well.
I would check it out. My one criticism is they show them filming scenes for Dolomite, and I'm watching this movie like Dolomite's My Name, and I'm like, I don't remember this scene being in Dolomite. I like literally watched this 2 days ago because I watched Dolomite is My Name on the plane. And it turns out that they took some of the crazy scenes from his other movies and then recreated those for Dolomite is My Name and didn't really explain that they weren't actually in Dolomite.
I gotcha.
So just be fair warned. You'll be like, I don't remember this happening because it did it to that movie.
Okay.
Yeah. I had something else to add about it. If I think of it, I'll add it. Yeah, it was definitely watching it with you made it more enjoyable. We could kind of laugh along with it.
Yeah.
My number 5 is Triangle from 2009. And like Oxygen, I'm going to keep this high level. Unless James, you really want to get into it, but this is definitely a movie that
I would love to, but we shouldn't do it here. That's for sure.
Okay. I will note that James did spoil the concept of this movie for me before I saw it, but that did not ruin my enjoyment of it.
Okay, I was gonna say. I mean, other than it's a good movie, you should watch it. I don't know what else I can tell you about it. Without
we were one
telling
time
you
talking about movies like this, and you said, "Oh, if you want to see a good movie like this, you should watch Triangle." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So apparently, Triangle is a movie like this.
Gotcha. Okay, so I understand. I didn't ruin the setting for you. I ruined the hook,
the mechanic. Yes,
sure. Okay,
but I shouldn't say you didn't ruin, because you did not ruin the movie for me. Even though I knew I knew the mechanic going in. That didn't make it a bad experience. Obviously, it's here by number 5. Sure. Anyway, so Triangle is about this woman named Jess, and she gets on board a sailboat with her friends, and she's sort of an odd woman for the rest of her friends. Right, they kind of invite her along because they like we should include her in things, but she definitely
feel sorry
isn't.
For her type of thing.
Right, exactly. We learn at home she has a son who I think is autistic, who's a challenge for her. So, like, they definitely want to try and get her out of the house, get her to do something. While they are on this sailboat in the ocean, this mysterious storm shows up. It capsizes their boat, and they're sort of lost in the middle of the ocean. They have no radio. They can't see any land. They think they're trapped. Along comes this mysterious ocean liner that they're able to climb on. And at first, the ocean liner appears to be empty, but then they realize that there is a killer on the ocean liner. And I'm going to stop right there.
Right.
So this is I would call it quite a horror film, but it's definitely a thriller with some horror elements to it. But there is a mechanic to it. It's a mechanic that we've seen before in movies, but I thought it was kind of clever how it handled this mechanic. It all kind of worked for me. Everything sort of fell into place how I was hoping it would, and it was a little different, but it still kind of all worked, if that makes sense. I'm trying to keep this high level as possible. Mm-hmm. This being a movie from 2009, it definitely reminded me, just in its look, of movies like Coherence or Compliance. Like, it kind of has this oversaturated, low budget, no name actor feel to it. But the story itself is interesting enough, and how they use this mechanic is creative enough that it really kept me hooked throughout.
Nice. I love this movie as well. And I think if you haven't seen it, you definitely should. And I think it's free on YouTube right now. So if you want to watch it, it's super easy to get to. I think you just have to watch
90 minutes.
Yeah, you just have to watch an ad at the beginning, and then I think they just let the whole movie burn from there.
Yeah.
Nice. That's convenient.
Yeah. Definitely.
Zach, have you seen Triangle also?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He had to watch it because I think it's on my top 100.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, really?
I watched it because of James.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My number, I'm super excited you watched that, Kyle. Thanks.
Oh, good. I wish
I don't know if you watched
more,
it,
but
I don't know if you watched it for me, but I'm glad you watched it.
I definitely watch it because you recommended it to me.
Perfect. My number 5 is another documentary, another one from 2020. It's Athlete A on Netflix, the Netflix documentary about the USA Gymnastics Larry Nassar controversy / crime that occurred over the course of 20 years, 30 years. I don't know how long he was allowed to abuse gymnasts, but it was far too long, obviously. And if you've been following the news over the last couple of years, you probably know about this story. And if you don't, you should definitely watch a show like Athlete A. I think there's also a podcast on this topic, like a 30 for 30 podcast. And there's also like a mini series somewhere, right? Like on HBO about this. There have been multiple documentary style versions of this case. But this one's probably the shortest because you're talking about like a 2-hour documentary. a little easier to get in and out of. I've only listened to the podcast. I haven't watched the HBO Max show, but regardless, it was well put together, but it's a brutal watch because it's all pain, right? It's a lot of people acting irresponsibly and a lot of very young people getting hurt and people looking the other way while it happens. And it's hard to watch. People express their pain on screen. And there's a lot of that happening with these gymnasts, recalling what happened to them at such a young age. And then absolutely infuriating seeing people try to justify why it happened. Not necessarily justify that it was okay that it happened, but justify like why it happened. And when there's really just no explaining other than, people are evil. I don't know.
Are the people who are trying to justify why it happened the people who'd also be responsible for why it happened?
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason why you would try to justify it for sure. People who aren't necessarily liable from a legal perspective, but obviously from a morals / ethics perspective, had ample opportunity to stop this years ago and did not until it was no longer a question of whether they could, type of thing. And so not a particularly pleasant watch, but a well-made documentary, I think, on an important topic. And my number 5, Athlete A.
I haven't seen Athlete A, but there is another documentary on the same thing called At the Heart of Gold. And I gave that 5 out of 5. I thought it was such a compelling documentary. Really sad too.
Yeah.
So my number 4 from 1987 is Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Which is another movie that I watched with Kyle when he came to visit. It's a Mel Brooks film. It has John Candy and Rick Moranis, and Mel Brooks plays multiple characters in it. And I forgot how good this movie was. In my memory, it was kind of cheesy. But in rewatching it, I was thoroughly enjoying myself most of the time watching this movie. And so, I had a lot of fun with it. I think that it holds up just fine. And there's a lot of like cleverness to it. There's breaking the fourth wall, just little bits of real clever comedy and really broad comedy as well. And I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Quite a bit refers to a significant amount.
Nice.
It held up much better than I thought it would.
It did good.
Yeah, I went in the same way, thinking this is probably cheesy, and no, it's funny and it's clever. And
it's
Princess
cheesy,
Vespa.
but it's intentionally cheesy.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that made your list. My number 4, this is hot off the presses. I just finished this movie maybe an hour before we started recording. And this is Raya and the Last Dragon from 2021, the Disney film. This movie is, it's about this girl named Raya, and she lives in this mythical land called Kumandra, I think. And it's a land that used to be populated by dragons. But there was a conflict 500 years ago, and all the dragons but one disappeared. And now the antagonist, the evil that the dragons defeated 500 years ago is back, and Raya needs to find the last dragon and kind of restore order to this land. That's kind of the basic plot. And what I really enjoy about this movie, though, is the world building and the adventureness to it. Because, like I said, it takes place in a mythical land. It's not like this is not taking place in China 2,000 years ago. It's definitely I would say a Chinese influenced society and look to it, but it still is its own land. It all takes place around this river lake that looks like a dragon, and each part of the each part of the land has been like broken off into its own sect that they then call it like based on what part of the dragon it is. So like instead of being this unified land, there's now Tail and Fang and Heart and Talon, and those are kind of each of the different little cities. And as Raya has to travel to each land to basically assemble something to save her, to defeat whatever the evil is, she slowly kind of builds her team. It's like her on her own, and then the team slowly kind of builds and builds as it goes. And then you have Awkwafina, who's playing the last dragon itself, who kind of is like kind of remind me of Mushu from Mulan. It definitely has a vibe to it, but I really like Awkwafina's comedy style and her delivery, and it transfers to a kids movie, I thought, really well. The animation, definitely was not Pixar level, but it was still good. It was, action. There was this cool adventure story to it. I was just really amazed by Raya and the Last Dragon. It was better than I thought it would be. And it was cool to see. It's cool to see a fantasy movie taking place in a fantasy land, which is something I don't think we see a lot of anymore. Oftentimes fantasy movies, they still try and ground in the real world. And this one's like, nope, it's all mythical. Let's just have fun with it.
That's awesome.
I liked it too. It's super colorful movie. Like I just remember, everything popping out of the screen as I watched that movie.
Yes. Yeah. And each part of the dragon land they travel to has its own distinct look to it. So it's, you can very tell visually like, okay, we're in Spine, we're in Fang here. And it was neat.
My number 4 is from 2006. It's a British film titled Starter for 10. You guys ever heard of this?
Never.
No.
It's an interesting one. It's a comedy drama, and check out this cast. Now, just remember, 2006 for this cast. James McAvoy, Alice Eve, Rebecca Hall, James Corden, and Benedict Cumberbatch, amongst others.
Wow.
So it's basically like these actors who some have gone on to like prestige acting. Others have just been in movies that I like, Mission Impossible movies and stuff like that. That all were very young actors in 2006, and they were all kind of in this comedy film together. And so it's a little bit of a curiosity in that way. I'm not sure it's like certainly not the best movie ever. It definitely feels like the style of movie it is at the time that it was made, just like a version where everybody has accents and it takes place in the UK. But with all these actors that eventually made their way across the pond and became, fairly well-known actors here in the United States. This is all like pre-fame for most of them. And I enjoyed it. I mean, it's nothing crazy. It's a relationship movie for sure, with comedy amongst these various friends. And I don't even remember like specific plot points about it. I just remember being charmed by it and having fun watching these fresh-faced people who have gone on to things that I've enjoyed in one way or another, kind of share the screen together at such a young age, like all in the same movie. Like it's super fun to watch James McAvoy in this and then remember that he's like the guy in Split. You know what I mean? And the X-Men movies. Like this is well before he was able to do those types of things. And like Rebecca Hall in this movie. And then later on, she goes on to be like, what was the name of that newscaster? Christine? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca Hall played in one of those Christine movies in that year that we got 2 of them for some reason. Yeah. And I think she was also in a Mission Impossible movie as well. Certainly James Corden. I don't think I've ever seen him in a movie. And now he's like a late night host here in the US, which is crazy to me. And he's like singing and dancing in this movie. And I know he does that in his late night show, and he's like done some Broadway plays. Totally makes sense now that I've seen him in this, that like, oh, that's just who he's been from the beginning. And, in these types of movies, he was doing that as well. And then to see Benedict Cumberbatch I don't know if this is one of his first movies, but it's he's really young in this movie. And he's kind of a supporting character, which I don't remember him doing much these days, except for maybe, wasn't he in 1917 for like 2 minutes as one of the generals or something like that towards the end? Wasn't that Benedict Cumberbatch? Am I remembering wrong?
I don't know. I remember Kenneth Branagh being in it. But...
He's in 1917 at the end.
Oh,
right.
no, I'm confusing 1917 with Dunkirk.
For like just
Yes.
a few minutes, right?
Yeah. Yep. You're right. He is.
So I don't know. Maybe he's barely in some movies, but he's not barely in this one. He's like the fifth or sixth build. You know, he's like one of the friends, but he's not one of the main friends. Anyway, regardless, I think if you enjoy those names and you just want to see them in something that's not high profile, that they're really young and like trying things out on screen and existing together in the same space, even though in the world that I'm used to them in, these people don't mix, right? They've all taken their own directional career paths. And here they are mixing. And it was just a fun movie to watch in that sense. And that makes it my number 4. Number 4.
That's awesome.
You did the same thing I did. It's like the Bill Paxton, Bill Pullman thing. And I often confuse Rebecca Hall and Rebecca Ferguson.
Okay, so Rebecca Hall wasn't in Mission Impossible.
Rebecca Ferguson's Mission Impossible. Rebecca Hall was she was in The Prestige. She played Christian Bale's wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
But when I hear the name Rebecca Hall, the first thing I think is, oh, Mission Impossible.
Even though she was never in Mission Impossible.
Yeah, even though that's Rebecca Ferguson. So
she's been in so much stuff, though. I mean, Frost.
Which one?
She was
Hall or
in
Ferguson?
Frost Hall. She was in
Okay.
Frost Nixon. I watched that recently. The Town, I love. Iron Man 3, Transcendence. I mean, just stone cold classics here for sure. Rebecca Hall's amazing.
Godzilla versus Kong. She was in that one.
She was.
Yeah, totally. Okay, my number 3 is a comedy called Bad Trip from 2021.
Wow.
And yeah, I thought this movie was so funny. It is stars Eric Andre, and this is kind of his deal. Basically, what it is, it's hidden camera stunts, kind of mixed in with a narrative. So it's what the Impractical Jokers movie should have been, and absolutely failed at being.
I mean, the Practical Jokers one was that. It was just the worst version of that.
Yeah. This one, I've never watched anything that Eric Andre has done. I know very little about him.
Never?
I mean, I bet if I looked at his filmography, he's voice acted something. I think
He's not a face you recognize.
I definitely recognize the face, but like I didn't watch his show.
You never watched his talk show?
No.
You didn't recognize his voice in the Mitchells and the versus the Machines?
No. So this was my first exposure to Eric Andre. I knew that he kind of has outrageous comedy. I think that was all I knew about him or whatever. Anyways, I watched this and I laughed so hard watching it. He basically, what he does is he plays this dopey in love character, right? And then he'll have hidden cameras and he'll move forward this narrative of like trying to go visit his high school crush, which is so common and plausible that it's the plot of this 2021 movie. And he goes with his buddy, and his buddy's played by Little Rel Howery. And they just basically interstitch like these narrative things that move the plot along with like these hidden camera stunts that they fit into the narrative. And the things that he like orchestrated were so outrageous and big and clever. And and came off so well that I'm just kind of in awe of how he put this together. It just seems like a lot of moving parts. It made me like Borat 2 less, actually, and that was a movie that I liked a lot. But I thought this one did it so much better than Borat 2 did, because all of the narrative stuff in Borat 2, I felt like got like bogged down basically. But this one just peppered it in so sparingly, and that I liked the narrative parts just as much as the hidden camera stuff. So yeah, I actually really like this movie a lot. So Bad Trip is my number 3.
Good choice. My number 3 is Silverado from 1985. This is a Western. It's directed by Lawrence Kasdan, who's most famous for being the writer of Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then some other newer Star Wars films. And it's Westerns is kind of a genre that sort of died out in the 60s and 70s. So it's interesting to see a Western from the 80s and kind of see the sort of this take on it. It is starring Scott Glenn, and he's kind of an outlaw who is traveling to Silverado because he needs to break his brother out of prison. His brother's played by Kevin Costner. And along the way, he runs into Kevin Kline, who kind of joins him on his journey, and then also Danny Glover. And they eventually team up with Kevin Costner, and the four of them are traveling together. So it's sort of a buddy Western in that sense, where you start with one and they kind of slowly build their group bigger and bigger. And they show up in the town of Silverado, and there's a corrupt sheriff they need to fight with, and they kind of that's sort of all your sort of Western things you expect, but having to sort of save the day from the evil sheriff. But this is actually a really fun movie to watch, and a couple of things that made it really work for me is one, like seeing a young Kevin Costner. I mean, this is 1985, so this is before he's doing Dances with Wolves and Postman and like Waterworld. Like, he's still an up and coming actor, and he plays this brother so well. He's kind of this charming screw up of a guy. Like he always goes into every situation well intentioned and is able to just kind of mess the whole thing up for everyone. And but he plays that role so well. Like, I almost wish Kevin Costner stayed as a character actor and didn't become a star, because I think character actor Costner is better than star Costner. This movie also has a stacked supporting cast. I'm just gonna start listing off names because I think you'll be blown away who's in this movie. Besides your four leads, you've got Brian Dennehy, Rosanna Arquette, John Cleese, Linda Hunt, Jeff Goldblum. That's about it for people you would know. A couple Kasdans are in there too. But like just to see, like, John Cleese is a sheriff in a town for 2 scenes. Like, Brian Dennehy plays the evil sheriff. Linda Hunt, who's she's the principal in Kindergarten Cop. She plays the saloon owner. Jeff Goldblum plays this gambler who's in town and kind of will work for anyone who will pay him. And it's just so much fun seeing all these actors all working together. I would highly recommend this movie.
I don't think I've ever seen it. I don't have it marked watched. I don't recall it. I'll have to check it out.
I have no idea why I watched it. Like, it was on my watch list, and I was looking for a movie from the 80s on my watch list. I'm like, oh, this is for the 80s, and I don't know why, but I liked it.
Sure. Nice. I'm going to check it out. Sounds like something that might be up my alley.
I think you'll like it, James. Zach, I think you'll like it too.
I'll check it out.
Cool. My number 3 is from 2020. And this is a movie that I really enjoyed, and I highly recommend to anyone listening to this podcast. I think it's a movie that anybody can watch, and it's titled Greenland, or Greenland. How do you say it? Like the country. Greenland?
Greenland.
Or
Greenland.
Greenland.
Yeah.
Greenland.
Yeah, Greenland.
All right.
Iceland to Greenland.
This is Greenland, a movie that is just criminally ignored, I would say. I mean, this is absolutely a super fun movie that I wish it had been released in a movie theater, because I'm sure it would have been really fun to watch on a big screen. It's a disaster movie. An actual good disaster movie was released last year, and nobody talked about it. And it's Greenland, and it stars Gerard Butler, of all people, and Morena Baccarin, who plays the love interest from the Deadpool movies opposite Ryan Reynolds. She was also in Firefly.
Firefly. Yep.
Yeah, the movie and the TV show. And I mean, I don't want to give you too many like plot points. Just know that it's kind of a Independence Day 2012 style movie where it's like, oh, the end of the world's going to happen, and we're going to zone in on just the small family and follow them trying to survive this big cataclysmic event type of thing. What's going to happen to them? And it kind of runs from one action sequence to another. I think something that benefits this movie is that it only has a $35 million budget. And so the things that they can do that are big budget, when they actually happen, they have quite a bit of impact, because there's a lot of running and chasing and thinking through the next move, even though they don't have much time to think. And like a lot of urgency around the pacing of the movie, but not a lot of money to just constantly throw computer graphics at you that make you feel more like you're watching a cartoon, which is kind of how I felt about most apocalyptic end of the world action movies of the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years. This very much feels like a 90s Independence Day style disaster movie. And I was there for it. It was awesome. I honestly didn't really think about this, but after I was done watching it, I was like, I can't believe I saw a Gerard Butler movie again that I want to watch twice. You know what I mean? It was just like I had subconsciously come to the conclusion that I'll probably never see another good Gerard Butler movie. And I was absolutely wrong. Greenland is super fun, and he's really good in it. And he plays a dad who's like protecting his family. It's the perfect role for a guy his age, in his kind of shape. It worked for me on multiple levels. Is it going to be like a classic that passed the test of time? Who knows? What it is just a fun disaster movie that you could watch right now and turn your brain off a little bit, and yet still have like enough unique plot elements to be like, oh, that's kind of like this, but also I like the spin. It was that kind of movie. So definitely, if you get the chance, or if you need to make the chance, just do it. Have some fun with it and check out Greenland.
That's awesome.
I see it's on HBO Max, so it's easy to watch.
Super fun. I mean, you could watch it with your wives. I don't even think there's any what is it, PG-13? Probably due to like action, but like it's.
Can I watch it with my daughter?
Absolutely.
Okay. You can watch it at the beginning when he's like, "Hey, family," at the end, like, ah.
I doubt she'd be interested in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of wish it was like a TV show. Like, I kind of wish it was like 8 episodes, because I was sucked into the world. Supposedly it's done all right enough and was low budget enough that they're doing a sequel that literally takes off from where this movie ends. And I'm into it. I'm all about it.
Nice. Cool. Well, my number 2 is a movie we talked quite a bit of length in an earlier podcast. So I'm just going to say that I watched Bo Burnham's Inside, and it has really stuck with me. I think that movie is going to kind of be one of the touchstones of this era that we kind of look back at. I think it's going to stand the test of time. There's a lot to mine in there. I liked it a lot, and it's my number 2, and it's on Netflix. So check it out.
Yeah.
Interesting. Since we talked, because there was a little bit of debate amongst us about like, was Bo Burnham like really held up in a 1-bedroom kitchenette for 14, 15 months? Everybody knows he wasn't actually that. And so I read an interesting article that talked about how whether the character that he's playing, which is certainly like a shade of him, if you compare Inside versus his earlier specials, there's always a piece of him in those specials But even he in interviews is like, that's not me. That's me on stage. And so Inside makes you feel like it's not Bo Burnham on stage, but really it's still Bo Burnham on stage. Like you are seeing him, and his emotions, just like they were in previous projects, are in those songs, but they aren't him. And a lot of people are connecting to it on like such a deep personal level that I just thought it was an interesting analysis in this article, where it was kind of like, there's nothing wrong with connecting with it on a deep personal level, as long as you accept the idea that it's still a guy on stage. It's not actually Bo Burnham out there.
I hope it's not actually Bo Burnham. I don't want it to be, because that's just a lot of torture.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Pretty dark if that was actually him going through that. Yeah.
I'm fine if he's just speaking for an emotion that people can connect to.
Agreed.
And I think he was feeling shades of those emotions. Like
Right.
I there's genuineness to it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not like he literally locked himself in a room for 14 months and we're watching a man slowly go crazy.
But it's kind of played literally. And there's a lot of people who don't understand that it's not literal.
That he's performing for a camera instead of just for an audience.
Right.
Well, even so, when he leaves his shack, it is on a stage. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Right. Yep.
So, like, yeah,
There are
the thing
context
itself,
clues in there
yeah.
that say this is a performance, even if, it's presented as a guy who's literally held up in a small room. Anyway.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good pick, Zach. I enjoyed that. My number 2 is the previously mentioned Bad Trip. And this movie it's hilarious. Zach, you did a great job of kind of summing it up. It does have a very ridiculous plot of a guy trying to find his high school crush 10 plus years later, but we let some movies pass like that. And I have become a fan of Hidden Camera because of Impractical Jokers. You guys introduced me to Impractical Jokers. I'm still watching them on HBO Max because there's like 8 seasons. They're each like 20 episodes each. But what kind of was different with this is Impractical Jokers is all about making the jokers uncomfortable. And this one was Eric Andre trying to make everyone else around him uncomfortable. Like he obviously was in on it and trying to kind of make everyone else sort of react to that. And what really got me with this movie was the scene in the juice bar. Right?
Yeah.
Like we're in the juice bar. He's got the hidden camera set up. He's telling all the customers, "Oh, I'm going to go visit my crush. What do you think? Should I go profess my love?" And they're all like, trying to respond to like this kind of weird guy. And then he does something in the juice bar, which is outrageous. And I broke out laughing. I was watching this on an airplane and I just broke out laughing on the airplane. And that's when that movie hooked me, was that juice bar scene. And every scene after that delivered on that same level of comedy as that first one.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't mention about the movie, and I'm going to again contrast it to Borat, is what Borat does is he kind of shows you how awful like just normal American people can be, and what Eric Andre shows you in Bad Trip is just kind of how good and helpful like average working class Americans can be, like all of the people that are, he's doing his behind the camera stuff, like his hidden camera stuff, are like, for the most part, like trying to help him out, like looking out for him. Like, it really shows just like a ton of people that like when they're caught off guard, are kind of trying to do the right thing. And I thought it is a very optimistic movie about, humanity.
Yeah. With Borat, the people who don't know they're in a movie are kind of the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
And in Bad Trip, he makes himself the butt of the joke, and it's more
Correct,
about their reactions, which are typically helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We forgot to mention that Tiffany Haddish is in this movie. She plays Little Ray Howery's kind of crazy sister, and she amps it up too. She's always funny, but her character in this movie and how she gets reactions out of the public is great.
I think it's my favorite Tiffany Haddish performance.
I could see that.
All right. Is it my turn?
It's your turn,
Yeah.
James. Yeah.
All right. Number 2. Kyle watched a favorite of mine. I watched a movie he's mentioned a few times. I don't know whether this would be considered a favorite, but it seems to come up a lot with Kyle. And so I had a spare afternoon. I was like, I'm going to watch this. I watched Uncle Frank from 2020.
Oh, yeah. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, I figured you'd do it. Is this a top 500 movie for you at this point?
You know, I'm still working on the top 500. I'm pretty close. But
Sure.
I think it will probably make my top 500. Yes. It definitely
Nice.
made my top 10 or 5 of last year.
Very cool. This movie stars Paul Bettany, Sophia Lillis, Judy Greer, Steve Zahn, Stephen Root, amongst others. And it's about this girl who it's the girl who's the girl of the group of kids from the movie It.
Yeah, she plays Bethany,
Yeah, she plays Bethany. She
the
plays
kid
this
version.
She plays this girl who lives not in a city, like out in the middle of nowhere. I forget exactly where this is set. Oh,
Georgia.
South Carolina. I'm seeing on
Okay,
Wikipedia.
not Georgia. All right.
So she's out in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina, and she has this Uncle Frank who lives in New York City, who comes and visits and, you know, comes and goes, and she thinks nothing of it. And she wants to go to school in New York, and he's encouraging her to, like, you know, get out of the small town and live a little now that she's college age. And so she takes his advice. She makes it to New York to go to college. And while in New York, she figures out, whatever, that her uncle's gay. The story's set in the early 70s, so this is not a thing that, like, people talk about publicly or wave. Not like today where people would, like, wave flags and announce it and not be ashamed. It's literally something you get arrested for in some states. Maybe even New York. I think they even make mention of, like, it being illegal in New York, although not necessarily enforced, type of thing.
He definitely had to hide it while he was in New York.
Right. And so she realizes that her uncle is gay, and it really doesn't bother her at all. I mean, she's kind of young and impressionable, and he's always been nice to her, and she doesn't really seem to care. That being said, his family in North Carolina definitely cares, especially his parents, who come from a religious background, and they obviously have known that he's gay and just generally try to ignore it or don't talk about it. As long as he doesn't bring it up, they're not going to bring it up, type of thing, for the most part. And stuff happens in the movie, and as you can imagine, like, things come to a head between Uncle Frank and the rest of his family. And absolutely a movie that I planned on working while I watched it, like, doing my job while I kind of watched this in the background. And by about half an hour in, I was sucked in. And by the end of it, I got to admit, I wasn't crying, but there was some definite welling up going on at what this movie was giving me. And it didn't feel manipulative. It felt very real, which is absolutely the best part about it. And also the saddest part about it, because you just, it better than most movies put me in the shoes of somebody who I don't walk those shoes, and made me feel for that person in a way that didn't feel exploitative, just felt very matter of fact. And I enjoyed that about it. I think Paul Bettany does a great job of, like, making you forget that he's Paul Bettany. He's Vision from MCU. I absolutely didn't have to fight, you know, the fact that I've just seen, like, a 8-episode Marvel series about him. Like, literally just a few months ago I watched that, and yet here he is playing a guy in a different time period and in an absolutely different movie from an MCU movie. Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with Uncle Frank. It's a good time period drama. And I recommend it to anybody who enjoys that type of thing.
I really liked his partner.
Yeah.
And oftentimes in movies like this, the partner's not like really a fleshed out character. It's just more of a foil or just sort of one dimensional. And they give that partner a backstory. That partner has scenes with Bethany that Frank is not in. Like he's a complete character in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Like
good.
he has his own issues to deal with. He has his own stakes, and Frank going back to Georgia and South Carolina. We keep moving north as we go. So yeah, it blew me away. I was really impressed by the movie. I'm really glad you watched it.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't get talked about more like around awards time. Not necessarily because of the subject matter, which I think also like it's interesting that this wasn't like I don't know. It seems like it could be a movie that Hollywood would champion just because of the subject matter. But even regardless of that, I think it's like one of the better dramas I've seen, certainly in 2020.
Well, so I think that was the issue. It was an Amazon release either early in 2020 or early in the pandemic. So it kind of got forgotten in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. I'll have to check it out. My number one is a rewatch, so I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's also in my top 100. It is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990. I love this movie so much. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I used to watch this on VHS, but I also think it's a really good movie. It's got great animatronic turtles. I haven't seen likable animatronic characters done this well since. Even in the sequels to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it hasn't been as good. Yeah, and I like all the characters. I mean, it's hard to separate nostalgia out from it, but I just thoroughly enjoy this movie so much. And it's not there's some darkness to it, like tonally, like it is a serious film, you know. I don't know. I think it's great. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, my number one.
Yeah,
what I like learning about that. Go ahead, James.
It's a movie that takes itself just serious enough for it not to feel completely frivolous, even though everything that's going on is absolutely ridiculous.
It has every reason to be the same tone as Batman and Robin. Right.
Sure.
That's the tone that this movie should have been. But that's not what it went for. It went for something that had a lot more meat on the bone. And I'm glad it did.
Zach, after we watched this, I was reading the IMDb trivia because I was impressed by like how well the turtles fight in those costumes. Because the fight scenes, like the martial arts choreography is great. And I read that they filmed the fight scenes just a couple frame rates shorter than like 24.
Okay.
So then when they played them
sped up.
So when they played them back, they looked to be much more fluid. And I find that to be fascinating, like how people can just make little tweaks. Like we know that these are big bulky costumes. We can't move fast. So let's just film it a little slower than normal. And then we play back at normal speed. It'll look great.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, my number one is a movie I finally got around to seeing, and this is Mother! From 2017.
Nice.
This is another movie like Triangle and Oxygen. I'm not going to go too much into it because I think there's definitely spoilery things, but it's also a movie where if you're well-read, you can kind of figure it out pretty quickly what exactly is going on. But as you guys know, the basic gist is Jennifer Lawrence lives in this secluded house with Javier Bardem. He is a poet. He seems to be on kind of like on a retreat. He's lost his creative energy and needs to like be in seclusion to be able to create again. And she's kind of in the house supporting him. And a series of weird events start happening. Like strangers start showing up at their house and causing a ruckus, and things really go off the rails from there. And I was on board for this whole movie. Right away, it starts kind of odd. So something's kind of weird's happening. And as people are showing up, you're wondering, like, who are these people? Why can she not leave this house? What's going on? And then they start adding more and more elements to it. I was like, oh, I get what's happening. And this is about the blank, which I'm not going to fill that blank in right now. And then it got really crazy towards the end. And there was a couple of moments towards the end that were a little much for me. I think you guys know one scene in particular involving a child. But for the most part, I was okay with everything I was seeing on screen. And here's I just thought about this. For my number 10, Workmeister Harmonies, I was, lamenting to Zach, like, are all the movies I need to watch, list movies from here on out, like, allegorical movies about the existence of man or blah 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 blah. And here was my number 1, Mother, which
that is funny actually.
So I'm trying to figure out why does Mother work as my number 1, where Workmeister Harmonies, which has similar themes, is my number 10. And I don't know if it's presentation, if it's a more traditional filmmaking style. I'm still trying to rectify that in my mind. But
can I posit something?
Please do. Yes.
I think if you're not liking a film for aesthetic reasons or, like it's because it's boring, that's your scapegoat.
Do you think that's me personally or that's just people in general?
Anyone.
Okay.
Yeah. But like, I think for you, like, you're like, I'm not into this film and it's talking about this. That must be why. Whereas like, no, if you were into the film, you'd be fine with it.
Yeah. Like I think about Andrei Rublev, which has similar presentation. It's a lot of philosophical talking, and for some reason that's like a 4.5 star movie for me. Like that one worked.
Exactly.
Other ones don't. So
yeah,
Mother, it worked for me. I don't know why I avoided this for so long, but I'm really glad I finally got around to it.
It's a Fincher movie, right? David Fincher?
Aronofsky,
right?
Who is one of my favorite directors.
Again, you watch Mother and you're just like, oh yeah, this is the guy that made Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Like this is like an even more amped version of Requiem for a Dream, which is like people misery building over time, I would say.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, by what she's subjected to by the end is just
right. Yeah. It's a good one. I just found it on 4K for $11. I bought it brand new. Can't wait to see those scenes in
like Requiem for a Dream. I can't see myself watching this movie again. Like I'm glad I saw it, and it's very high on me, but I'm good.
This will be my 3rd or 4th time watching it. It's going to be amazing.
Wow. You just really love seeing Jennifer Lawrence get torn down.
Yes, that's why I like it specifically. My number 1, my favorite movie out of the last 10 that I watched is from 2006. It's a Paul Verhoeven movie titled Black Book, which was a blind buy on Blu-ray. Zach picked it up for me at a garage sale. He texted me. He's like, I'm at this garage sale. They're selling Blu-rays. Do you want any of these? And I was like, get me Black Book. Thinking it was
a different Black Book.
Absolutely a different movie. I was thinking it was Little Black Book, which stars that actress from the 90s who passed away. I'm drawing a blank on her name, but I
Brittany
really
Murphy.
liked her. Brittany Murphy. Yeah, it stars Brittany Murphy of 8 Mile fame, amongst others. I thought it was that movie, which I've seen before and I enjoy, and I would love to own that on Blu-ray. Instead, it's a Paul Verhoeven movie that's not even in English that I had never heard of. And I decided, what the heck, I'll pop it in. And I popped it in and I watched it and I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, this feels like the type of movie where if you don't like Paul Verhoeven, you should watch this because this might change your opinion of him. Maybe he makes completely sensible, not, odd movies in other places. And the only ones we get here in the United States are like the craziest of the craziest when it comes to him. But Black Book has shared DNA, I would say, with Inglourious Bastards in that it's definitely the same time period. It's kind of like if you took the Shoshana character from Inglourious Bastards, but you gave her the entire movie to exist in. That's kind of how Black Book felt. It's not exactly the Shoshana character, but it's definitely a female from that time period, from that exact time period, trying to survive amongst the Nazis over the course of time, or over the course of the war, rather. And I enjoyed that playing out of events. I also enjoyed Paul Verhoeven doing a period piece and him directing actors in a restrained way, right? Like it still had a little bit of an edge, kind of like a Tarantino movie would have, kind of like Inglourious Bastards has, where there's just a little bit of an edge to what's going on. But unlike Inglourious Bastards, it didn't feel like there were any calculated detours from history or anything like that. It never claimed to be based on a true story. It's just like, oh, this could happen amongst this historical setting, not necessarily it did happen type of thing. And I thought there was some interesting moral dilemmas within her story. I'm forgetting the name of the actress who heads Black Book. Let me pull it up because her name is worth saying out loud. Carice Van Houten.
Oh, she played the Red Witch on what's that movie? Or the Game of Thrones.
Oh,
Melisandre, is that her name?
That's entirely possible. I did not put that together, but
okay, I think that's her.
Yeah. She's really good in this movie, and she's kind of like a Jewish woman who can pass as not Jewish, and she's trying to live in a world where if she's found out, it's over type of thing. And at the same time, she is a good singer, and so the Nazis take a liking to her, and so she ends up performing at like these high level Nazi gatherings, and she has some guilt over the idea that like she's living a good life, but it's kind of a closeted life for sure, and that in some ways she's bringing joy to the group that's oppressing her people. And yeah, it was a total shock to me that I enjoyed this movie. Just an absolute shock, because I was pretty sure I had Paul Verhoeven pegged. Like I knew exactly what he was capable of. And I was ready for that. And instead I got something that had shades of that, but was in a completely different context. And it worked for me. My number one, not the Brittany Murphy movie, but a good one, Black Book. James,
that movie's on my watch list.
Nice. You should definitely check it out.
No idea why it's there. So I heard about it somewhere, and it's a recent ad too. I don't know why it's there, but it's there. So
I didn't talk about this on the last 10 top 10, did I? I can't imagine.
You've certainly talked about it. I don't know if you've done it to me personally or on the show.
Oh, did you definitely Did you do a repeat last 10 top 10?
I doubt it, but maybe.
Okay, so you must have mentioned it before, and then that's why it's on my watch list.
Sure. Could be.
Okay. We'll go to now. It's a second ringing endorsement from James.
Yeah.
Totally possible. Is somebody checking? I'm curious.
Oh, I'm checking.
All right. Cool. Well, while you
Has
check,
it ever happened before where you guys have accidentally used the same movie twice from
last 10
top 10 to last 10 top 10?
I don't think I've ever done it, but I can't imagine it's never been done. Zach, do you remember ever doing that?
I don't remember, but I would not be shocked if it happened.
Right. Yep. We've done enough of these for sure. At one point, when we were rounding like 50 top 10 last 10s, do you remember we were going to do a top 10 last 10?
Yeah.
Like basically where we ranked the best top 10 last 10s we've done. And
like
then I think we quietly passed 50 and just said, all right, we're not going to do that.
James.
Yes.
This was not on your list last 10 top 10.
Nice. Still
you
flawless.
Must have just mentioned at some point.
Probably.
You liked the Parallax View.
Oh, I know what it was. On an after show, we went through a stack of Blu-rays that was on my desk, and it was one of them.
Nice.
That's it.
So we have talked about it, but the vast majority of the listeners have not heard it yet. So there we go. Thank you.
And James, how would they hear those after shows?
They would become a Patreon supporter. Yeah. You can do that. You can get a bunch of after shows, pretty much all of them. In fact, exactly all of them for your first month support. If you were to go to patreon.com/Cinereelists, REEL with an S on the end. If you were to support us at the $3 level, you would get access to every after show we've ever done. Well over 100 of them, as well as 2 DVD commentaries. One for, did we do 2? I don't remember. How many did we do, Zach? We did one for Back to the Future. Not Back to the Future. Bill and Ted, Bogus Journey. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
We did 2.
And Toys.
We've done 2.
Toys.
Yeah,
was
Toys.
The other one. The Robin Williams movie,
of course.
Toys. So if you were to become a Patreon supporter today, you would get so much stuff to listen to. It would take you months to finish, basically. So keep that in mind. Also, you could send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. Again, REEL with an S on the end. Send us a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, any of those kinds of things. We are happy to accept via email. You could also subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Cinereelists. You could also follow my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaubin.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Peter SKB.
Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Next week, there will be no podcast, which is probably the first time in several years where we're going to consciously miss a week on this podcast. It's the July 4th weekend, and we all have plans. We just couldn't quite make it come together. So we're going to take a week off. We'll see you guys the week after that, the week after the July 4th weekend, where we will be talking F9. Just such a weird title. Why did they shorten it to F9? Like, is that because of is there a fighter jet named an F9? Is that the joke of this, or I don't get it?
It's because at this point you should know what the franchise is. You don't need the Fast and the Furious 9.
I think they're literally trying to troll us at this point. They're like, we do not want to set up any kind of pattern behind these titles. We want each one to be as confusingly unique as we can possibly make them.
Yeah. Fate of the Furious was so
Fate
dumb.
of the Furious is amazing. That it's the 8th
dumb.
installment and they call it Fate of the Furious. I love it. I think that's genius. I think it's Fast 9. I think the official title is like Fast 9, the Fast and Furious Saga or something like that.
But why is 6 and 7 Furious 6 and Furious 7? Like, why do those two get to be similar and like none of the other titles are similar?
So they start with Fast 5, which is clever.
Right.
And then 6 was supposed to be called Furious 6. But then it got changed. Officially, it's Fast and Furious 6, which is dumb. Like, it should be Fast 5, Furious 6. So that's why number 7 is officially Furious 7. We got to save this for 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, I've prepared. I literally, in the last 3.5 days, watched all of the Fast and Furious movies.
Thank you, James.
So I am ready. 2 weeks from now, we're gonna talk Fast and Furious movies from one end to the other.
I'm so excited. I'm so looking forward to it. We may even have a special guest.
I honestly think that's the way to watch them, because it's kind of like watching a TV show. Just a really high budget, very loud TV show, basically.
I'm glad that you've rewatched them recently, because definitely like plot points bleed together for me, so you can be the one to like, oh no, in this one that's what happens.
Oh, I'm sure they bled together for him as well if he binged them.
Yeah,
very like complicated plot points. I'm glad I have a fresh memory on them.
Set pieces, I can tell you which set pieces in which movie, but like the plot point of it, it gets a little fuzzy in the middle.
I'll draw a diagram for you. You'll be fine.
Please do.
All right. Look forward to that, guys. We'll see you there. Until then, keep it Cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.